Aubrey Graham, has not just alleged, but has filed suit. Actually, more specifically, he has, I didn't know Drake had an LLC called Frozen Moments. That's pretty lame. Sorry, Drake. Has accused Universal Music Group and Spotify of a scheme to artificially inflate streams and numbers for Kendrick's Not Like Us, filed today in court in Manhattan. The scheme involves bots, payolas, all kind of stuff, and his attorneys are accusing UMG of violating the RICO Act, which is funny because it's Drake. False advertising, deceptive business practices. This is like a real deal lawsuit. He's suing his label, which, historically not a good idea. But he thinks he's Drake. I mean, he knows it, but he's like, they need me. Interesting time in your career to pick a fight with your label. Like, I'm just trying to imagine, unless there's just hard proof that could not be ignored, which would then cause everybody to kind of reevaluate some of the events of this past summer a little bit. Or at least it would give him some cover.
It would give him an out.
That's the best case scenario.
Mm-hmm.
The worst case scenario is that there's nothing, or that the label shuts this down, or he gets paid off, or it's murky, or whatever. At which case he will have gone to war with his label when his popularity has dipped, and how his reputation has not been. I mean, as long as he has been, I don't know what, over the last 15 years, right? This is the nadir of his reputation.
Yeah.
It's quote, classic movie Dodgeball. That's a bold move, Cotton. Let's see how that pays off. Boy, I don't know, man.
My first thought was, this feels like a move that the owner of a business would do to another business owner.
Mm-hmm.
Because there were those rumors last year that Drake, I think that was this year, that the reason why Future, Metro, Ross, all these artists were coming at Drake was because his deal gave him a certain percentage of these artists' earnings, which essentially made him like his own record label. Like, Drake would not sign to himself, but essentially he would be the record label. So if that's true, it would make sense that Drake would sue his record label to this degree. My second thought was, and I would like to get your insight on this and just any initial thoughts you have in general. I hearkened back to 100 gigs, and it felt like Drake was releasing that stuff not only to try to get his reputation back up, but it was also like almost out of spite to his label because of how much you released. You literally emptied the clip of essentially what could have been, and what still could be, your last dance. That could have been your Michael Jordan documentary, and you just put it out for free on the internet. And it almost felt like a middle finger to Universal to say, you're not making money off of this. I don't know. What are some initial thoughts that come to mind for you?
He got paid. Yeah, I mean, he got paid a lot of money up front, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because they thought Drake was the safest thing going. They might have made a mistake. They made a mistake.
He was.
I mean, he was, but what they were paying, you never pay for past performance. You know what I'm saying? This happens in the music industry. It's been a while, but this used to happen all the time. Like, no shots at Janet Jackson, but I remember when Janet was a free agent and signed some big deal in like 2004, and it was like huge money, right?
Was that Janet or was that Mariah?
I think it was Janet.
I know Mariah. I know that happened with Mariah because that followed that was Glitter. Glitter came from that.
Well,
or maybe it was both.
Like, I think it was Janet. It was one of those things where it's like they were paying, like, yeah, Janet had a huge 80s, gigantic 90s. It's like you're banking that it's going to keep happening. Like, that's hard, but like, it's one of those things, where it's like, what are you going to do? Tell Janet no? Just like now, what was Universal going to do? Tell Drake to go take a hike?
Right.
And so it's a lot of money up front, but in return, they want their money back, And so first, as you said, Drake does a leak, just putting his stuff out there. Who cares? Because what does he have to lose at this point, right? Except for grasping at straws. Will anything pop off?
Mm-hmm.
But also, if he has suspected this whole time, if he has like been gathering like information, like, I'm going to pretend for a second that at least some of this is true. If some of this is true, then Drake is he's gonna set fire to Universal. You
Mhm.
paid me the money, and you're trying to defraud me effectively,
Mhm.
ruining my career.
Mhm.
Why? He doesn't care about them at all,
Mhm.
right? So, I don't know how this ends well. Like a lot of times you get cases like this. There's the okay, we've come to an agreement. We're gonna
Mhm.
do something, but like what's the agreement here?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because Drake's not. I mean, as you said, Drake needs an out. He's desperately looking for an out.
Mhm.
Because otherwise you wouldn't do this lawsuit. If you had if you even suspected it, if you're Drake, you're telling me. I mean, first of all, like, man, what would that even tell you about like how his own record label saw him,
Right.
But also,
Absolutely.
like you're telling me you don't have you can't go to the. I just find it hard to believe that you couldn't go to like the CEO. You Drake, you can get an appointment. I'm pretty sure,
For sure.
and say, listen, I'm pretty mad. Here's what my team has. You don't want me to file suit. So how are we gonna make this work? Right? You would do that. But it's personal for him because his career is in shambles.
Yes.
So
Yes.
he's just gonna set fire to it.
Yeah.
So I can't think of any equivalent situation to this. Like this is bonkers, actually. Like an artist of Drake's caliber and success.
Yes.
It's not like Universal was like burying his album on the shelf and not letting him release music. It's not that label situation.
Right.
It's a guy who up until 7 months ago, was universally seen as the most successful hitmaker in rap music.
Yep.
Who 8 months later has decided, after the worst half year of his professional career,
Mhm.
he's going to sue his record label and accuse them of trying to basically cause part of that damage that made it the worst 6 months of his life. Like
Mhm.
it's bonkers.
Yeah.
I don't know what else to say.
I was on Twitter for
Oh.
a good portion of the time of the beef and Not Like Us.
Uh-huh.
There were a lot of bots running wild. It was very aggressive.
Sure.
Anytime you said anything about Kendrick Lamar, just these accounts would just like incessantly pile on. I guess my question is, how do you prove that? Because
Right.
bots come from everywhere, right? But how do you prove that these bots came from Universal? And because we didn't even talk about these people that are named in the lawsuit, Spotify.
So if you Billboard's got good details on it. Spotify is like named, they're not a part of the lawsuit yet. They are named as like, there's something specific here. What is it? It's so like Apple is like kind of named, but they're not named as a respondent. And then Spotify, okay. So because so it's not a full lawsuit yet, but it's what's called basically a pre-action petition, which is a legal procedure under New York law that basically says we want to get more information before we file a lawsuit. So they have to get started with this theoretically so that they can get access to the proof. So actually reading that in real time, this isn't even a full lawsuit yet. This is a legal filing to get them access to information so they can do the full lawsuit, which does not make me feel good about about Drake actually having real proof. You know what I mean? Because the other thing is Drake's very online. And it's true that there were lots of bots, but it's also true, I bet, and I wonder if anybody at Universal had this conversation with them where they said, hey, Drake, we have done that for your records too. Do you know what I mean? And they're probably just like, shut up, because this is how it works. The problem is, now what is sort of true, but you can't really sue. What's true is they picked a side. And the fact that they didn't pick Drake's side gotta be one of the most crushing, because from his perspective, they're like, this is a man who's calling me a pedophile, who has the whole world chanting about how I like minors, and you're assisting this promotion to make money after I've made you hundreds of millions of, I'm sure this is what he has been seething. Yeah,
because to your point, another thought that I had initially was this blows the door off the hinges and exposes how record labels work and some of their more shiesty practices.
The modern like marketing economy on the internet, it's so gross. It's so
gross. It's gross.
It's gross. Yes. Why wouldn't labels pay for bots? Like, they'd be stupid not to, actually. Their job is to make money. That's it. However that happens, and they make money by monetizing our attention.
Absolutely.
And if they can pay if there's a number out there that they can pay per bot, that the return on investment gets your attention to go listen and give them revenue. Listen, if they didn't make money, they wouldn't do it. They would stop doing it.
Mm-hmm.
So like it must work. Just in the same way, this is so much less complicated, but it's true. Like one of the biggest things I had to learn at my current job is how well email marketing works. Because I hate getting emails from marketing.
Yes.
But let me tell you, it works. The biggest, it's like you have to like, and it's like you're not like we're like if you're doing marketing via email, I can almost guarantee you, unless you're a professional company, you're not doing enough. All those like Black Friday emails that you've been getting every single day from all of these companies, there's a reason they send them. Two reasons. One, they're free, effectively, like almost so cheap that they basically are free. But two, they work. If they didn't work, they wouldn't send them. So it's all that same concept is going to apply to things like bots or paying influencers, or like this is the modern marketing economy, right? The way that they used to try to trick people was you do a clever TV ad or, do whatever. Now, is this payola? Well, not exactly, right? But like the same thing that payola rules were designed to fight against, we don't have rules against them on the streaming sort of attention economy side. Those rules don't exist. Right. So I don't know. Unless he's going to find like some email between like Spotify reps and like somebody at Universal that says like, yeah, what's the Not Like Us budget for playlists? Oh, here's another $150K. Like, unless there's an email that says that, I'm just not really sure what he's doing. Other than like, there's one thing in there which sounds like he heard something online and got mad. Where like he says that like, yeah, they obviously worked with Apple because somebody asked Siri to hear Certified Lover Boy, and instead they played Not Like Us, which sounds like something that somebody told him as he was furiously telling his lawyers to put into the lawsuit. Make sure you put the Siri thing, and it's like, oh, okay, buddy, sure. Apple conspired.
It sounds very much like to our point about needing an out.
He's an out.
His ego
needs
cannot accept the fact that he lost this bad. Pusha was one thing.
Pusha was different. I think part of the problem here is his out with Pusha was that he became a public father,
which is wild.
There's no out from the Kendrick allegations. What's he gonna say? Yes, I'm a pedophile.
Right. I mean, we talked about in the Heart Part 6 where he's like, you're not, if I was a pedophile, I would have been arrested by now. It's very much R. Kelly on Gayle King.
I mean, sort of, except like, well, actually, you know what? I'll just ask you, like, do you think that Drake is a pedophile?
I think Drake is a pedophile. I've never given it much thought. I've heard rumors. But I've never given.
Here's what I know. I'm like 100% sure that Drake definitely hooks up with and has sex with 18-year-old college girls. The man raps about it all the time. That is not in doubt. That is 100% not in doubt. But that is not what we were talking about. And as we've said before a million times, and it matters because he's doing more of the moralizing on this album, is like with Kendrick, he despises Drake for a lot of reasons. And a lot of them are moral. Right. And like the fact that like basically that Drake is like a man in his like late 30s living life like he's in his late teens, like really bothers Kendrick.
Bothers him. Yeah.
That Drake has kids and he's not that he doesn't seem as a responsible dad. And like we talked about this before I'm not trying to rehash the whole thing, but like there are a lot of people for whom like the new norms about like what's accepted for like age gaps and power dynamics means that for a lot of people, you're like, oh, he's 36, 37, having sex with an 18-year-old. Wow, he's a predator. And it's like, oh, okay. I mean, that's a strong word, y'all.
It is.
But like that's the thing is it's like, but what are you going to do if you're Drake? Go, don't worry, they were all legal. It's like, you can't say that.
You can't say that.
Like,
yeah.
It's like you said, it's like the whole like, yeah, I would have been arrested by now. It's like the more you say, he's just going to keep, but he's pushing, trying to find a way out. He just still hasn't figured out. Here we are, it's November. He still hasn't figured out that the way out is to let go, is to back away and disappear but you're not going to break through and solve that problem. That's what he's trying to do.
You ever argue with your girl or argue with a girl and she says something about you and then she like blocks you? Like she gets the last word. Okay. Well, that's happened to me a couple times. So
I've been with Marissa for 21 years.
Yeah,
right.
There you go. Okay.
Yeah.
Got you. So you essentially, somebody gets the last word on you and you can't respond.
Right.
And that's what it feels like Drake has been wanting to respond
Oh, sure.
forever. The one thing that you can't do is like when you get blocked like that, when someone says, yo, don't call me again, whatever, like you literally, if you go around them, if you try to like reach out to mutual friends, or if
Right.
you like get a Google Voice number and try and text them from there, like you look crazier and crazier.
No. That's that. Right.
You could potentially get the police involved. Like it could just get really ugly for you really fast. The best thing to do,
and the whole time you're like, I just want to be heard. And it's like, no. It's over.
Done.
It's over.
You
It's
can't.
over. It's over.
You can't.
It's over.
But you got to get that off in therapy, or get that off to your friends. Like that person is not. That's not the space where you're going to get that off. And you have to accept, in their mind, you are the villain. Even if it's like not intended, like, yo, that's not what happened. Like, if only I could explain myself. It just, you have to accept, and not even embrace, but you just have to accept, like, this person is dead wrong. But that's just what they believe, and I got to move on. And that's essentially what J. Cole has done to a degree. Like, look, I got to put this album out. I'm going to, I said this on the podcast. He had to do Port Antonio. He had to. Whether he executed it, well or not, that's up for debate.
Sure.
But he had to address it in that way.
Yeah.
Because some of that stuff y'all was getting on J. Cole about, we heard that on GNX, but we'll get there. He had to get that, and now he's moving on. Let's rely on nostalgia. Hey, look, hey, the warm up. Hey, like,
hey.
He's there. Drake, just for whatever reason, cannot let it go. He has to have the last word.
Well, hold on. Now, I mean, to his credit,
even if it's justified, absolutely, that person could be
we're
dead
sitting
wrong.
here telling him to walk away, and it's like, he's got half the world thinking that he's a sexual predator and should be locked away for life.
Sure.
And he's just like, he's got to just be in like, why? Because I like repeated some gossip about the man's wife. Like what? Like he just doesn't understand. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. All right, we talked. Listen, we don't need to rehash all this, but just Drake suing Universal is just like right. It's like announcing intent to sue. All right, buddy.
Yeah, did you see him did you see any clips of him he was on somebody's stream last night?
What I saw was that people were clowning him for having the beginnings of a bald spot.
That's what, when you cut your hair, when your hair gets braided, like it gets pulled back and you do, like, it happens, like people thin out. That's not sure. Okay.
Again, people they're just going to dunk on him every single time.
He's a punching bag until he puts out great music. And if you judge the last 5 years of his catalog, the music that he's put out is not enough to not be a punching bag.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I mean,
wait,
you got some breaking news?
We do. Universal Music has responded to Drake's claim that it conspired to artificially inflate the streaming numbers of Kendrick Lamar's Drake diss, Not Like Us. The suggestion that Universal Music Group would do anything to undermine any of its artists is offensive and untrue. We employ the highest ethical practices. We employ the highest ethical practices in our marketing and promotional campaigns. No amount of contrived and absurd legal arguments in this pre-action submission can mask the fact that the fans choose the music they want to hear.
Oof. All they had to say was that we can't, it's an ongoing legal proceeding, so we can't comment in detail other than to say that Universal, always like follows the rule, whatever. They could have said some milquetoast thing that said complimentary things about both Drake, Kendrick, and all their artists, but they didn't. They did not.
Do you think that there is the last thing I'll say, and then we'll move on? Yeah. Do you think that there is a legitimate parallel between Drake receiving a lot of like shock and backlash for this and the Tupac estate sending a cease and desist for Taylor Made?
What do you mean? I don't
because it's all legal. I think that the commonality is going through the legal system in diss records.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. The Taylor Made thing is that's one of those things where it's actually like, I don't know, that actually just kind of felt like, I didn't feel like they had really strong legal grounds. That felt like protected speech as far as I'm concerned, because he wasn't trying to confuse anybody into believing. He wasn't trying to like sell a Tupac record. That was almost closer to like parody and mocking just that we have technology to make it sound exactly like the artist now.
Mhm.
And as long, there's no law, there's no judicial ruling that says that like this technology is illegal. So I don't know, like to me that almost felt closer to like when like Weird Al would do parody records in the
Right.
90s.
I'm fat.
It felt closer to that, like except he's using it in like a sinister way.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
For rap beef, yeah.
Well, I mean, sinister is in sort of like we'll say not sinister. It wasn't joking, right? It was more like mocking.
Mm-hmm.
And because this Gen X album brought it home even more. It's like, it wasn't even just that he chose like a West Coast artist. It's that he chose Tupac. Kendrick Lamar is obsessed with.